Welcome to Story Planet, where we bring you relaxing and heartwarming tales to help you unwind. Tonight's story is Gingerbread Hearts. So, settle in, get cozy, and let yourself be carried away into a world of holiday magic, warm connections, and snowy dreams. Now, let's begin. Ella hadn't set foot in her childhood village of Maplewood in over a decade. The little bakery her family had run for generations still stood, its gingerbread-scented air wrapping her in nostalgia as she stepped through the snow-covered streets. The familiar sight of the holiday lights and pine garlands tugged at her heart. Her parents needed her help this Christmas, and although her corporate city life left her little time, Ella had promised herself she'd make it home for the holidays. She hadn't expected that stepping back into the bakery would bring so many emotions rushing back, or that she'd see Jack, her childhood best friend, walking through the door. The journey to Maplewood had been a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. As her train rumbled through snowy countryside vistas, Ella watched the frost-kissed trees blur past the windows. She clutched a thermos of hot cocoa, its warmth a comforting contrast to the chill outside. Memories of her childhood crept into her thoughts, snowball fights, skating on the frozen pond, and the laughter that always seemed to echo through the bakery during the holidays. The city had been her dream for so long, but why did it feel like Maplewood was where she truly belonged? Stepping off the train, Ella was greeted by the sight of Maplewood's iconic Christmas tree in the town square. Its sparkling lights and carefully placed ornaments seemed to beckon her back to simpler times. As she trudged through the snow with her suitcase, the bakery came into view. It looked almost the same as it had when she was a child. The wooden sign with its elegant script still read Maplewood Sweets, and the large window displays showcased gingerbread houses and frosted cookies shaped like snowflakes. Ella pushed open the door, the familiar jingle of the bell announcing her arrival. The warmth of the bakery enveloped her, along with the sense of cinnamon, nutmeg, and molasses. Her parents emerged from the kitchen, their faces lighting up at the sight of her. Hugs were exchanged, and soon Ella found herself perched on a stool by the counter, catching up on all the news she'd missed. That's when the door opened again, and Jack walked in. He was taller now, his once boyish face more chiseled, but his smile was as familiar as ever. He carried a wooden crate filled with Christmas market supplies and greeted Ella with an easy familiarity that made her heart skip a beat. It had been years since they'd spoken, and yet it felt like no time had passed. Jack stayed for longer than Ella expected, helping to unload the supplies he'd brought before taking a seat at the counter. They spoke cautiously at first, testing the waters of their long-abandoned friendship. Jack's eyes lit up as he talked about the Christmas market he now managed, describing the bustling stalls, festive music, and how he'd introduced new attractions to keep the village's traditions alive. Ella found herself smiling at his enthusiasm, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Her parents, sensing the reunion's significance, quietly retreated to the kitchen, leaving the two to their conversation. The scent of nutmeg and cloves filled the air as Ella rolled out the dough for her first batch of gingerbread in years. Jack, who now ran the village's Christmas market, stopped by to place an order for cookies for his stall. Their conversation was warm yet tentative, with both of them skirting around the memories of a once close friendship. As the dough formed perfect little hearts, Ella realized that baking here felt like slipping into a comforting rhythm she hadn't known she'd missed. Jack lingered longer than he needed to, teasing her about her flour-dusted face, and Ella couldn't help but smile. The next morning, Ella found herself in the bakery kitchen before sunrise. The quiet stillness of Maplewood contrasted sharply with the constant buzz of the city. As she measured out ingredients, her mind wandered to the summers she and Jack had spent baking with her parents. They'd been inseparable back then, always concocting new cookie flavors or sneaking bites of frosting when they thought no one was looking. When Jack arrived to pick up the first batch of gingerbread hearts, Ella was dusting powdered sugar onto a tray of freshly baked cookies. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her work with a smile that was equal parts admiration and amusement. "Still a perfectionist, I see," he said, his voice carrying a teasing warmth. Ella laughed, brushing a strand of flour-dusted hair from her face. As they packed the cookies into boxes, their conversation grew more personal. Jack spoke about his efforts to expand the Christmas market, his love for the village, and his hopes for its future. Ella listened intently, surprised by how much she'd missed hearing his voice. She shared stories of her life in the city, the challenges of her high-pressure job, and the moments when she'd longed for the simplicity of Maplewood. By the time Jack left, the sun had risen, casting a golden glow over the snow-covered village. Ella stood at the bakery window, watching him walk down the street with the boxes of gingerbread hearts in his arms. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Ella spent the rest of the morning fine-tuning the recipes she'd learned as a child, carefully measuring out spices and experimenting with her technique until each gingerbread cookie had the perfect texture and flavor. The warm kitchen became a hub of activity as her parents joined in, their laughter and chatter creating a symphony of love and tradition. Her mother shared stories of how the bakery had brought the community together over the years, and her father recounted the creative challenges of past holiday seasons. Ella couldn't help but smile as she listened, their words filling her with a deeper appreciation for the legacy she had temporarily left behind. Each task, from rolling the dough to piping intricate designs, felt like a rediscovery of something precious. Ella realized that the act of baking, mixing, rolling, and decorating was more than just a task. It was a way to connect with her roots, her family, and herself. Her parents worked alongside her, sharing laughter and sneaking tastes of the freshly made icing. Together, they created not only trays of gingerbread hearts, but also a renewed sense of joy in the small yet meaningful moments. As the hours passed, the bakery filled with the sense of gingerbread and memories, each cookie a testament to the joy that Maplewood had always brought her. The sound of carolers outside added to the festive atmosphere, their voices harmonizing with the hum of activity inside the bakery. Ella's heart swelled with a comforting realization. She was exactly where she needed to be. The air was crisp and filled with the sound of distant carolers as snow began to fall softly over Maplewood. The bakery's kitchen buzzed with activity as Ella and Jack worked side by side, decorating trays of gingerbread hearts. Frosting bags in hand, they competed to see who could create the most intricate designs, laughing at their own playful attempts. "Remember this one?" Jack asked, holding up a cookie shaped like a star but unevenly frosted. "It's just like the ones we tried to make when we were kids." Ella chuckled. "You mean the ones where we ended up eating most of the frosting before it even made it to the cookies?" They fell into an easy rhythm, memories tumbling out as naturally as the powdered sugar dusting their countertops. Jack told her about the Christmas market, how it had become the village's centerpiece during the holidays, and how he'd poured his heart into keeping the traditions alive. Ella listened, marveling at how his passion mirrored her own childhood love for the bakery. As the evening wore on, the snow outside turned heavier, blanketing the village in pristine white. Jack turned on the small radio in the corner, and the soothing melodies of holiday classics filled the room. Ella found herself humming along as she piped tiny white dots onto the gingerbread hearts, the act bringing a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years. Jack paused, watching her intently. "You've still got the touch," he said softly, his voice carrying an undertone of admiration. Ella glanced up, her cheeks warming under his gaze. It's like riding a bike, I guess. Some things you never forget. As the last batch of cookies cooled, Jack helped her carry the trays to the display shelves at the front of the bakery. The sight of the perfectly frosted gingerbread hearts, each one unique yet collectively beautiful, filled Ella with a quiet pride. She turned to Jack, who was brushing flour off his hands. "Thank you," she said, her voice gentle, "for helping me remember what this feels like." Jack smiled. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad you're here." Outside, the snowflakes danced in the glow of the streetlights, and the village seemed to settle into a peaceful hush. For the first time in years, Ella felt that same stillness seep into her own heart. The evening ended with Jack inviting her to visit the Christmas market the following day, an offer Ella accepted with an eager nod. As she locked up the bakery for the night, her mind was already brimming with anticipation, her heart fuller than it had been in years. The village's Christmas market was alive with the buzz of holiday cheer. Stalls lined the cobblestone streets, adorned with twinkling fairy lights and evergreen garlands. The scent of mulled cider, roasted chestnuts, and freshly baked goods filled the crisp winter air, creating a symphony of festive aromas that seemed to wrap around every passerby. Children laughed as they chased each other through the snow, their cheeks flushed with excitement, while couples strolled hand in hand, stopping to admire handmade ornaments or sample warm treats. Ella stood behind Jack's market stall, which had become a bustling hub of activity. The gingerbread hearts they had worked so hard to prepare were displayed proudly on tiered trays, each one a miniature work of art. Some were frosted with intricate snowflake patterns, while others bore cheerful holiday messages written in looping, sugary script. Customers lingered at the stall, drawn by the inviting smell and the nostalgic charm of the cookies. "Your cookies are stealing the show, Ella," Jack said with a grin, handing a bag of gingerbread hearts to a smiling customer. "I think we're going to need to bake more tonight." Ella laughed, brushing a stray snowflake from her scarf. "I didn't realize how much I'd missed this," she admitted. "The market, the baking, Maplewood itself. It's like stepping back into a dream I didn't know I'd forgotten." Jack's expression softened as he watched her. "It suits you," he said simply. "You belong here." Before Ella could respond, a sudden gust of wind swept through the market, scattering snowflakes and sending the bunting above their stall fluttering wildly. Jack reached out to steady the decorations, his hand brushing against Ella's. The fleeting contact sent a warm spark through her, and she found herself glancing up at him, their eyes meeting for a brief, charged moment. "Looks like we've got a snowstorm coming in," Jack said, his voice breaking the spell. "We better secure the stall." Together, they worked to anchor the decorations and protect the trays of cookies from the swirling snow. The activity brought them closer, their teamwork seamless and natural, as though no time had passed since their childhood days. By the time the market began to quiet down, the snow had settled into a gentle flurry, blanketing the village in a pristine layer of white. Jack turned to Ella, his breath visible in the frosty air. "What do you say to some hot cider and a walk through the square?" he asked. "The tree looks especially beautiful tonight." Ella hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I'd love that." As they walked through the market, the towering Christmas tree in the village square came into view, its branches heavy with ornaments and twinkling lights. The glow of the tree cast a warm, golden hue over the snow-covered ground, and Ella felt a sense of wonder wash over her. "Do you remember how we used to sneak out here after the tree lighting?" Jack asked, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "We'd bring cookies and sit on the steps, watching the lights until we couldn't feel our toes." Ella laughed, the memory vivid in her mind. "And your mom would always scold you for tracking snow into the house when you came home." "Worth it," Jack said with a smile. "Every time." They reached the base of the tree, where a small group of carolers had gathered, their voices blending harmoniously in a rendition of Silent Night. Ella and Jack stood side by side, their breaths visible in the cold air as they watched the scene unfold. For the first time in years, Ella felt a sense of belonging she hadn't realized she'd been missing. "Thank you for this," she said softly, turning to Jack. "For everything. I didn't know how much I needed it." Jack's eyes met hers, his expression earnest. "You're welcome, Ella. I'm just glad you're here." As the carolers' voices faded and the snow continued to fall, Ella realized that this Christmas was shaping up to be the most magical one she'd ever had. And for the first time in a long time, she couldn't wait to see what the next day would bring. The first light of dawn crept over Maplewood, casting a soft pink hue across the snowy rooftops. Ella stirred awake to the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon drifting up from the kitchen below. The sounds of her parents bustling about the bakery were a comforting reminder of the traditions they had built over the years. She stretched, allowing the warmth of the morning to sink in before pulling on her thick sweater and heading downstairs. "Good morning, Ella." Her father greeted her with a smile, holding out a steaming mug of coffee. "We've got a busy day ahead. Jack dropped by earlier to say the market sold out of your Gingerbread Hearts last night." Ella blinked in surprise. "Already? I didn't think they'd go that quickly." Her mother chuckled from the counter where she was rolling out dough. "They're not just cookies, sweetheart. They're memories for people. Every bite takes them back to the happiest times of their lives." Ella's chest swelled with pride at her mother's words. She joined her parents at the counter, quickly falling into the rhythm of mixing, rolling, and cutting. As they worked, the sunlight poured through the frosted windows, illuminating the kitchen with a golden glow. By mid-morning, Jack arrived to help transport the next batch of cookies to the market. He walked in carrying a box of ornaments, his cheeks pink from the cold. "Thought we could use these for the bakery," he said, setting the box down. "A little extra holiday spirit never hurts." Ella peeked inside to find an assortment of delicate glass ornaments, each one intricately designed with snowflakes, candy canes, and gingerbread patterns. "These are beautiful," she said, lifting one carefully. "Thank you, Jack." He shrugged with a grin. "Just trying to earn my share of the cookies." They spent the afternoon decorating the bakery together, stringing twinkling lights along the shelves and hanging the ornaments on a small tree in the corner. The scent of gingerbread and pine filled the air, creating a cozy atmosphere that felt almost magical. As evening approached, the bakery doors opened to a steady stream of customers. Families came in to pick up their holiday orders, each one greeted with warmth and cheer. Ella marveled at how the bakery seemed to bring the entire village together, its walls echoing with laughter and the hum of festive conversations. Jack stayed by Ella's side, helping to package orders and refill trays of cookies. Their easy banter and shared laughter made the hours fly by, and Ella found herself wishing the night would never end. When the last customer had left and the bakery was quiet once more, Ella turned to Jack with a smile. "Thank you for today. I couldn't have done it without you." Jack leaned against the counter, his expression soft. "You don't have to thank me, Ella. This place, it's special, and so are you." Ella felt her cheeks flush, the warmth of his words wrapping around her like a blanket. For a moment, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them and the quiet glow of the bakery's lights. Ella awoke the next morning to the faint sound of bells jingling in the distance. She lingered in bed, the softness of the quilt and the promise of another snowy day keeping her cocooned in warmth. Yet her thoughts wandered to the unfinished moment with Jack the night before. She wondered if he felt the same shift she had, a sudden awareness that something more lay between them. Just beneath the surface, at breakfast, her mother noticed her distracted demeanor. "Everything okay, dear?" her mom asked, placing a steaming plate of pancakes in front of her. Ella hesitated, unsure of how to explain. I think so. It's just complicated. Her father looked up from his coffee. Complicated doesn't mean impossible. Sometimes it just means it's worth figuring out. His words lingered in her mind as she made her way to the bakery. The snowfall from the previous night had covered the village in a pristine blanket of white. Ella's boots crunched softly against the snow as she opened the shop's door. The familiar scents of cinnamon and vanilla wrapped around her, but today they carried a hint of something bittersweet. Jack wasn't there when she arrived, which was unusual. He had been a steady presence every day since she'd returned to Maplewood. She busied herself with preparing for the day, her hands working methodically as her thoughts wandered. Hours later, the bell over the bakery door jingled. Ella looked up, expecting to see Jack, but it was Mrs. Calloway, one of the village's longtime residents. Good morning, Ella, Mrs. Calloway greeted her warmly. I came to pick up some gingerbread hearts. My granddaughter simply adores them. Ella packed the order, grateful for the distraction. I'm glad she likes them. We've been working on some new designs. As the elderly woman left, Ella's gaze drifted to the snow-covered street outside. The Christmas market was already bustling, and she wondered if Jack was there, tending to his stall. She decided to take a tray of cookies over, hoping to find him and perhaps clear the air between them. When she arrived at the market, the festive atmosphere was in full swing. Children ran between stalls, their laughter mingling with the cheerful notes of a brass band playing carols. Jack's stall was easy to spot, adorned with twinkling lights and a garland of holly. He was there speaking with a customer, his easy smile in place. Ella hesitated, her nerves suddenly getting the better of her. But before she could retreat, Jack caught her eye. His expression softened, and he waved her over. I brought more gingerbread hearts, she said, holding up the tray as she approached. Jack took the tray from her, their fingers brushing briefly. Thanks. These are perfect. For a moment, they stood there, the bustle of the market fading into the background. Finally, Jack spoke. About last night? Ella's heart raced. Me too, she said quickly, not entirely sure what she was agreeing to, but certain that she didn't want to let the moment slip away again. Jack's smile returned, this time softer and more hesitant. I'm glad you're here, Ella. It's been good having you back. It's been good to be back, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize how much I missed this place, or you. The honesty hung between them, fragile and full of possibility. Jack reached out, his hand brushing hers again. You don't have to miss it anymore. You could stay. Ella's breath caught. Jack, Before she could finish, the brass band struck up a jubilant version of Jingle Bells, and a group of children ran past, giggling and tossing snowballs. The moment was interrupted, but the unspoken words lingered between them like the scent of cinnamon in the air. Let's talk later, Jack said, his voice steady. After the market. Ella nodded, her heart both anxious and hopeful. As she walked back to the bakery, she couldn't help but smile. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to stay in Maplewood, to make the bakery her own again, and to see where this path with Jack might lead. The day passed in a blur of activity, but as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village lights began to twinkle, Ella felt a quiet sense of anticipation. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to find out. The next morning dawned with a golden hue spilling across the snowy rooftops of Maplewood. Ella stood by the bakery window, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of cocoa, watching the world wake up. Her thoughts were a pleasant jumble of recipes and Jack's smile, though the latter seemed to linger more than she anticipated. As the bakery filled with the hum of morning customers, Ella found herself working alongside her parents. Her mother handled the front counter with the ease of years of experience. while her father meticulously arranged trays of cookies and pastries. It was a scene Ella hadn't been part of in so long, yet it felt natural, as though no time had passed. "Ella," her mother called, breaking her thoughts. "Can you help with the gingerbread house display? I think we could use a touch of your artistry." Ella smiled and joined her mother near the window display, where an elaborate gingerbread village was taking shape. She carefully adjusted the frosting icicles on a gingerbread house and placed tiny candy trees around it. The task brought back memories of the countless hours she had spent as a child, perfecting the bakery's holiday displays. The bell above the door jingled, and Ella looked up to see Jack walking in, his cheeks pink from the cold. He carried a small package wrapped in festive paper and set it on the counter with a grin. "What's this?" Ella asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Consider it a bribe," Jack said, his eyes twinkling. "I need your help with something." Her curiosity piqued. Ella opened the package to reveal a set of vintage cookie cutters in the shape of snowflakes, stars, and bells. She looked up at him, surprised. "Where did you find these?" "A vendor at the market," Jack said. "I thought they'd be perfect for the bakery, and maybe we could use them for a special project." Ella raised an eyebrow. "What kind of project?" Jack leaned closer, lowering his voice as though sharing a secret. "A gingerbread decorating contest at the market. I thought we could team up." Ella laughed, the idea sparking a sense of excitement she hadn't felt in years. "You're on," she said, "but don't think I'll go easy on you." They spent the afternoon in the kitchen, experimenting with new designs and brainstorming ideas for the contest. Jack's enthusiasm was infectious, and Ella found herself laughing more than she had in months. Their hands worked in tandem, rolling dough, piping frosting, and arranging decorations until the table was filled with colorful creations. By the time the sun set, the kitchen was a mess of flour and sprinkles, but their gingerbread masterpieces were worth the chaos. Jack held up a particularly intricate cookie, its frosting forming delicate snowflake patterns. "I think this one's the winner," he said, showing it to Ella. She shook her head, holding up her own creation. "Not a chance. Mine's clearly superior." Jack pretended to examine her cookie critically. "Fine, you win, but only because I'm a gracious loser." Ella laughed, nudging him playfully. "Admit it, you're just impressed." "Maybe," Jack said, his smile softening. "But mostly, I'm just glad we're doing this together." Ella felt her heart flutter at his words, the warmth in his gaze making her cheeks flush. For a moment, the world outside the bakery faded away, leaving only the two of them and the shared joy of their work. As they cleaned up, Ella realized how much she had missed this. The simple pleasure of creating something meaningful with someone who understood her. The bakery wasn't just a place of work. It was the heart of the village and, in many ways, the heart of her own life. That night, as she locked up the bakery and stepped out into the crisp night air, Ella looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The sound of soft caroling filled the crisp winter evening as Maplewood prepared for the grand lighting of the village Christmas tree. The event, a cherished tradition, brought together the entire community, and Ella found herself swept up in the excitement. She had spent the day preparing trays of cookies for the bakery's booth at the event, her heart light with anticipation. Jack arrived just as the last tray was loaded onto the display. "Ready for tonight?" he asked, his grin warm and familiar. Ella nodded, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "As ready as I'll ever be." "You?" "Always," Jack replied, his voice carrying a teasing edge. "Though I think I'll need one of those cookies to keep my energy up." Ella laughed and handed him a frosted gingerbread heart. "You've earned it." The evening unfolded with a magical air as the villagers gathered in the square. The towering tree stood tall and proud, its branches adorned with twinkling lights and ornaments crafted by local artisans. Children ran about, their laughter echoing through the frosty air, while couples strolled hand in hand, soaking in the festive atmosphere. Ella stood by the bakery's booth, handing out cookies and cups of hot cocoa. The warmth of the community surrounded her, each interaction a reminder of why Maplewood held such a special place in her heart. Jack joined her, his presence a steady comfort as they worked side by side. When the time came for the tree lighting, the crowd gathered around, their breaths visible in the cold air. The mayor gave a short speech, his voice filled with gratitude and holiday cheer. Then, with a dramatic countdown, the tree sprang to life, its lights casting a warm golden glow over the square. The crowd erupted in applause, and Ella felt a surge of emotion as she watched the tree shimmer against the night sky. Jack leaned closer, his voice low. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Ella turned to him, her heart full. "It is." As the crowd began to disperse, Jack took her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "Come with me," he said, leading her toward the tree. Beneath its glowing branches, he paused, turning to face her. "I've been wanting to tell you something," Jack began, his voice steady despite the nervous edge in his eyes. "Ever since you came back, it's been like everything in this village has fallen into place again. You've brought so much back with you. Your laughter, your passion, your heart. I didn't realize how much I'd missed it until now." Ella's breath caught. She opened her mouth to respond, but Jack gently placed a finger to her lips. "Let me finish," he said with a soft smile. "I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. I just wanted you to know how much you mean to me and to Maplewood. Whatever happens, I'm glad you're here." Ella felt tears prick her eyes as she reached for his hand. "Jack, I don't have all the answers right now, but I know one thing. I'm so glad I came back too." Under the glow of the Christmas tree and the soft snowfall, their connection felt undeniable. As the carolers began another song in the background, Jack and Ella stood together, their hearts full of promise and a shared hope for what the future might hold. The soft glow of the Christmas tree bathed the village square in warm, golden light. Ella stood beneath its branches, the distant hum of carolers filling the frosty air. Jack's hand remained lightly on hers, his touch both grounding and electrifying. His words lingered between them like the gentle snowflakes drifting from the sky. "You've brought so much back with you," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "This bakery, this town, and me. I didn't realize how much I'd been missing until you returned." Ella's breath hitched, her heart swelling with warmth she hadn't expected. "Jack," she began, her voice soft, "I didn't realize how much I was missing either. Coming back here, it's felt like finding a piece of myself I thought I'd lost." His gaze met hers, filled with quiet intensity. "Does that mean you'll stay?" The question hung in the air, weighty yet hopeful. Ella hesitated, not out of uncertainty, but because the answer felt monumental. She had spent so many years running towards something she couldn't define, only to find it waiting for her in the place she'd left behind. "I want to," she admitted, her voice trembling with honesty. "But I've built a life in the city. It's not easy to let that go." Jack nodded, his expression understanding yet unwavering. "I get it, but maybe you don't have to choose. The bakery can be yours again, Ella. You could make it your own, build something here that feels just as fulfilling, and I'll be here, no matter what you decide." Ella smiled, the sincerity in his words wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is," Jack said with a soft laugh. "Or maybe I'm just an optimist. Either way, I'm not going anywhere." The gentle resolve in his voice gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. The crowd around them began to disperse, villagers heading home with rosy cheeks and hearts full of holiday cheer. Ella and Jack lingered by the tree, savoring the stillness of the moment. "Come on," Jack said, his tone lighter now. "I've got one more surprise for you." Curiosity piqued. Ella followed him through the quiet streets of Maplewood. The snow muffled their footsteps, the village serene under its frosty blanket. Jack led her to the edge of the frozen pond where they used to skate as kids. Tiny lanterns lined the perimeter, casting a soft glow over the ice. "You didn't," Ella said, her eyes widening with delight. Jack grinned. "I did. Skates are in the shed. Let's see if you've still got it." Ella laughed, the sound bubbling up like the effervescence of sparkling cider. They laced up their skates and stepped onto the ice, their movements tentative at first but growing more confident with each glide. The years seemed to melt away as they twirled and laughed, the cold air biting at their cheeks. "I forgot how much fun this was," Ella said, her voice breathless from both exertion and joy. Jack skated closer, his breath visible in the crisp night air. "You've always been better at this than me. Remember when you tried to teach me how to spin?" Ella laughed, the memory vivid. "You fell so many times, I thought you'd never try again." "But I did," Jack said, his tone softening, "because you never gave up on me." The words carried a deeper meaning, one that Ella couldn't ignore. She met his gaze, her heart full. "And I never will," she said, her voice steady. Jack reached out, taking both her hands in his. They skated in slow circles under the soft glow of the lanterns, the world around them fading into the background. In that moment, Ella realized she wasn't just skating on a frozen pond. She was stepping into a future she hadn't dared to dream of. As the night wore on, the snow continued to fall, blanketing Maplewood in a fresh layer of beauty. Ella and Jack finally left the pond, their laughter echoing through the quiet streets as they walked back to the bakery. When they reached the door, Jack paused, his expression serious yet tender. "Ella?" he said, his voice low. "Whatever you decide, I just want you to know you'll always have a place here, with me." Ella felt tears prick her eyes, the depth of his words resonating deeply. "Thank you, Jack," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "That means more to me than you'll ever know." With a gentle squeeze of her hand, Jack bid her good night, leaving Ella standing in the warm glow of the bakery's porch light. As she stepped inside, the familiar scent of gingerbread greeted her, mingling with the promise of everything yet to come. The days leading up to Christmas passed in a flurry of activity. The bakery bustled with customers eager to buy Ella's gingerbread creations, each heart-shaped cookie a little piece of holiday magic. Jack was a constant presence, helping where he could, his laughter and warmth filling the shop as easily as the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg. On Christmas Eve, Ella found herself alone in the bakery after closing. She stood in the quiet kitchen, the countertops dusted with flour, and the faint hum of the oven still warm from the day's work. Outside, the village lights twinkled against the snow, their soft glow reflected in the frosted window panes. As she arranged the final tray of cookies, the doorbell jingled. Ella turned to see her parents walking in, their smiles as warm as the cocoa they carried in their hands. "Thought you might need a break," her mother said, setting the mugs on the counter. "You've been working non-stop." Ella smiled, accepting the mug her father handed her. "It's been worth it. This feels more like home than it ever has." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's because you're here, Ella. The bakery, the town, it's better with you in it." Before she could respond, the doorbell jingled again, and Jack stepped inside, his cheeks pink from the cold. He carried a small box wrapped in festive paper, setting it on the counter with a grin. "Merry Christmas," he said, his voice soft but filled with warmth. Ella opened the box to find a beautifully handcrafted ornament shaped like a gingerbread heart, its frosting details delicate and shimmering. She looked up at Jack, her eyes misting. "It's perfect," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." Jack smiled, his gaze steady. "You're welcome. I thought it might be a nice addition to the bakery tree." Together, they placed the ornament on the small tree in the corner of the bakery. As the lights reflected off its surface, Ella felt a deep sense of contentment settle over her. She looked around the room, at her parents and Jack, at the bakery she loved, and realized she had everything she needed. When the clock struck midnight, the church bells rang out, their tones echoing through the village. Ella stepped outside, the crisp air filling her lungs as snowflakes danced around her. Jack joined her, his arm brushing hers as they stood together under the starlit sky. "Merry Christmas, Ella," he said, his voice low and filled with meaning. "Merry Christmas, Jack," she replied, her heart full. As the bells continued to ring and the snow fell softly around them, Ella knew she had found her way home. Back to the bakery, back to Maplewood, and back to a love she hadn't dared to hope for. Thank you for joining us on Story Planet. If you felt like you were right there in Maplewood, surrounded by the scent of gingerbread and the glow of holiday lights, consider giving a thumbs up. And if this story brought you peace and comfort, feel free to share it with friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe for daily stories that bring serenity and warmth to your evenings. Wishing you a peaceful night and sweet dreams.